We are live. Chelsea taking on Tottenham Hotspurs. A very good evening to you. My name is Mitch Matyana. Kings of London, great derby, by the way. I think it was quite exciting to see that these two teams going at it. We've had them in Carabao Cup action, but now we finally got to see how they would have come up in the Premier League. Now, feel free to get engaged. Let me know what you thought of how Chelsea played and how Spurs played in this game. So, as you know, Antonio Conte has been in charge of Spurs for the past 10 games in the Premier League and hasn't lost a single game until he met up with Thomas Tuchel. Now, lost two of the games in the Carabao Cup, and now losing his third one against Thomas Tuchel, which must have stuck. And I want to start off with Spurs because you look at Tottenham right now, who haven't beaten Chelsea since Mauricio Pochettino. And that says a lot because you look at that entire squad. For me personally, I think there's a lot of people that shouldn't be there in terms of the standard where Tottenham should be, judging from the season where they ended up in the Champions League final. I think they had a missed opportunity in terms of strengthening the squad. You look at, the midfield, it was quite disjointed. And you look at Jeffrey Tanganga, who also picked up an early yellow card. That pretty much changed the game because Tanganga couldn't really tackle Hudson-Odoi that much or imposed himself on Hudson-Odoi because of, the risk of running another yellow card. And I mean, he's already been red carded this year when when Spurs took on Crystal Palace. And we all know what happened there with Zaha even scoring goals in that fixture as well. So I think for Conte Spurs, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I think you look at that entire team, and now we are in January, which is pretty much a transfer window. The question is, where do they spend money? Where do you think Spurs should kind of, invest in to get a little bit better? I think, that midfield, it's quite leggy. There's not enough creativity coming in there. You have three holding midfielders in Højbjerg, Harry Winks, and you have Oliver Skip. That's stiff. I'm going to be honest. That is really stiff. And there's no outlet or a link between those two midfields. We've got Craig Smith saying, we needed that win to put those chasing for top four in their place. Well done to the team for the win. Look, kudos to Chelsea. But if we're being honest, Chelsea fans, this wasn't the greatest performance that I've seen a Chelsea outfit put up. I feel like you look at the first couple opportunities where Romelu Lukaku had two opportunities back-to-back. One where the ball was cut across by Mason Mount, and he missed that. And then again, Hudson-Odoi putting the ball back in, and I don't know if he was ducking underneath the header, but he missed that too. So are we ready to have that conversation about Romelu Lukaku? Because big money signing, a lot of money on that price tag. We saw what he did for Antonio Conte in Serie A, but we also saw the interview that he gave about Antonio Conte and Serie A. So now as a Chelsea fan, how do you feel about that? What is the issue? How do we change this? Because at the end of the day, in Thomas Tuchel's first year, Chelsea has won the Champions League. I mean, that's not an easy feat. And he did that without Romelu Lukaku. So you look at, in hindsight, it's easy to say they didn't really need Romelu Lukaku. They should have just stuck with their guns. But at the beginning of the season, when you hear Lukaku's coming to the Premier League and coming back, and, he is a former Chelsea boy and he was there, now he wants to do the same. I'm not going to lie, I was part of the people that was pretty excited. But at the end of the day, I didn't put Chelsea into the winning spot. So now everything is starting to play out. You look at the injury that he had. Yes, that factored why his goal count is also low. But then you look at also just the interview that he gave, as I alluded to a little bit earlier. And you look at how he's just missing opportunities, how he hasn't shown up in some of the big games that Chelsea has played. Is it time to go back to Timo Werner? Is it time to go back to Kai Havertz? Because personally, I think as much as Havertz hasn't been the best player, I think he can contribute to this Chelsea team. There is a unison when Havertz is there. He scored the winning goal of the Champions League final. I'm going to say it straight. But he's not there. So what is next? What is next for Chelsea? How do we improve? I think the positives that we can go off is, of course, the defensive stats that Chelsea have and how they've set up defensively. I think Thiago Silva has been one of the best signings that they've made in a long time. Because if you look at the stats right now, Spurs only got 6 shots off and they had 3 shots on target. And then when you look at the shots they had on target, it was easy pickups for Kepa. He didn't seem very troubled. It was an easy block. It was from outside the box. So therefore, you look at the Chelsea defense and they are doing a job. And I think Rudiger is also, I know they're in contract negotiations of how to keep Rudiger. I think Antonio Rudiger has been very brilliant. I think his energy of being able to carry the ball from the back, moving forward, scoring goals, showing up in big moments, to win the ball back and stuff. I think that has been incredible for Chelsea. And I think just the team that Thiago Silva and Rudiger and also Espi. I mean, I can't forget about Espilicueta. I think he's put on a show as well. But there's questions about the inconsistency at Chelsea. I think when you look at, and I can't bring up this weekend because City dropped points, but when you look at City and their runs that they've had, there's a consistency in there, and there's players that are showing up every single time. And you look at them going from 12 game streak wins to 10 game streak wins because they're putting these games together. Now you look at a Chelsea team, which, if you compare quality between them and City, yes, they're all a touch off, but they have strength in numbers. They've got a good depth in their squad, and they can handle the amount of fixtures and games and everything coming at them. But it seems like there's such a slight disjointed factor within them. You know what I mean? And I think there's quite a bit to do, especially with the players, on the fringe. I mean, we've got Thabo Mabuza saying Rudiger is the best. I agree. I think Rudiger has been putting on performances. I think he's arguably, and I'm going to say it, one of the best centre-backs in the league, not top 3 maybe. I think it's arguably between him, Ruben Diaz, and Virgil van Dijk as the top 3 centre-backs right now. And also Thiago Silva's name is in that hat as well. So I think when you look at Chelsea, it's a good team, good system in place. I think Thomas Tuchel has got them playing as a unit, but I think the Lukaku signing might have been a mistake. Do you agree? I think you look at Tammy Abraham right now, and as we speak, it just wrapped up between Roma in the Serie A. I think Tammy Abraham has been scoring goals, and under Frank Lampard, Tammy Abraham was one of the leading goal scorers. Then you remove Frank Lampard, Thomas Tuchel comes in, and he plays Havertz instead of Tammy Abraham, right? And then from there, we see Jorginho become Chelsea's top goal scorer for a period of time. And that was penalties. He was goal scorer because of penalties. So in hindsight, again, it looks easy to say they should have kept Tammy Abraham, they should have done this and they should have done that, and they won a Champions League. So it's quite hard to argue that point. But you look at what Tammy Abraham is doing right now in Serie A and scoring goals for Jose Mourinho, and you look at what Lukaku's doing in the Premier League right now, and you're kind of scratching the back of your head and you're saying, you know what, Tammy Abraham would have been better. And I'm going to stick to that because you can't say, Tammy Abraham is not Premier League proven. He hasn't done it in the Prem. He has, under Frank Lampard. He's definitely showed up. And Romelu Lukaku has also showed up in the Premier League, but that was for Everton and West Brom. And then he still had a run at Manchester United, which was okay. It wasn't the greatest. And then he got his move to Inter Milan, and of course, he was one of the main guys in the entire league, even outscoring Cristiano Ronaldo, who was there as well. So I guess he did build some credit in his bank, but when in terms of what has happened in the Premier League, I don't necessarily think that he's done it. But let's do more analysis, on the game. We look at Chelsea, 15 shots and 7 on target. And I think the one shot that was on target that went into a goal is Hakimi Ziyech. Now, goal readers, we know what has been happening with Ziyech. and his international team. Unfortunately, he's not at AFCON because we know there's been some miscommunication between them. We've seen the fights on social media. But we can't deny that Ziyech is a good player. It's taken him some time to get used to England. And I think for most players, that happens. And we expect, the instant click, the instant, as soon as you come onto the pitch, you show up and you score goals and you make assists. I get it. I think that's where football is right now. And I think the patience game that Chelsea has been playing is slowly but surely, maybe showing off right now. Ziyech has scored in back-to-back games. And of course, he scored a worldie just this evening. So then in comparison to what he has done, earlier in the season, where he is now, it looks like he's moving towards the right direction, which is good to see. And it's always good to see look, it might be a little bit late to see it towards the end of the season, but we just hit the halfway point. So there's still more games to go. And Chelsea are not too far off in terms of securing their place in fourth place. And even with City, if City drops more and more points and, Chelsea keeps gaining more points, we might have an interesting battle come March, April. And we might be talking, maybe a new champion. I do not know. But I think Ziyech has definitely come good. His goal reminded me of vintage Iron Robin. Cut in on the left foot, curl it in, Hugo Lloris planted, watching it over his shoulder because there's no goalkeeper in the world that can save that goal. So kudos to him. I think Chelsea was very dominant. You saw it. You see it in the possession stats with 66% possession. And of course, Tottenham only 34. I guess you would lean to the home team to have most of the possession, but I think the possession that Tottenham had wasn't enough, to trouble Kepa. You saw Steven Bergwijn; he was trying his best, but there was no help. When Lucas Moura came in, he injected some energy into that team, but again, it seemed like he was pressing alone, and everyone was just dropping off and didn't want to concede more goals. So for Antonio Conte, I think they look forward to the FA Cup tie now. And Chelsea also look forward to their FA Cup against Plymouth, I think. And then after that, Chelsea will be leaving to the FIFA Club World Cup. So they'll have quite a huge break between this Premier League game and their next one. And of course, all the crazy fixtures come their way when it's Champions League season in February. But for Tottenham, I think it's back to the drawing board. For Conte, you've got a couple of days left to see what they can do to get players in. I think it's important for them to not just buy players for the sake of buying players, but to buy players in positions that they need, and they need to offload players as well. Craig Smith, again, with another comment saying Ziyech works his socks off. Probably one of the best performances in Chelsea shirt. I have to agree. I think this was the Hakimi Ziyech that we saw at Ajax, the Ziyech that was part of that Ajax team that had that incredible run in the Champions League. I think that's what we saw. And we saw the potential of what he can do and how dangerous he can be on the right wing for Chelsea. Goal readers, let us know what you think. How did Chelsea perform and how did Spurs perform in the comments below? That's the Kings of London segment. Chelsea winning it 2-0. It's very exciting to see how the rest of the league pans out with some midweek fixtures coming your way this week. I've been Mitch Matyana. Have yourself a fantastic evening. Good night.